Hey everybody, Bezad back again with another podcast, and today I've got Ben from Clobber Calm. A lot of you guys have been asking for this one. I oddly enough, I wasn't aware of your podcast, and I would post my podcast up, and people were like, "Oh, you got to talk to Ben. You got to talk to Ben. You got to talk to Ben." So here I am talking to you, Ben.
Nice to meet you.
Welcome to the podcast, and for everybody, for those people out there who don't know who you are, why don't you give us the quick introduction?
Yeah, no worries. My name's Ben from Yorkshire in England, and I have a denim store called Clobber Calm.
All right. Well, that is a very quick intro. Well, maybe you could give us a little bit more backstory on the shop.
Yeah.
Like, how did Clobber Calm come to be? How did you find yourself in the denim industry?
Well, I'll tell you what happened around for the last 10 years, I've worked in vintage clothing. So there is a very big vintage clothing warehouse near where I live, which is also in Yorkshire. And I was a sales manager for those guys for a number of years. So I've always had a big interest in clothing. It was just vintage clothing. Now, in that sort of industry, clothing comes and goes very fast. So big deliveries will come into a warehouse, they would get graded and sold straight out to shops. And what was happening was I was finding a lot of nice items, a lot of pieces of clothing that I'd see and I'd want to look at and feel and hold, and then a day later they're gone. So I started up an Instagram account in 2015 simply to take pictures, just so I had my own sort of record of all this beautiful denim and clothing that were coming through. And then that started to gather momentum over the space of maybe a year, 18 months. I mean, I was very novice to the whole Instagram world and the whole self-promotion, social media thing that exists these days.
I was going to say, you're pretty good at it, though. You're kind of everywhere, so you're a quick learner.
Yeah, and so what would happen is I would be posting my pictures, people started following, and it's like, oh, hang on a minute, this is actually a thing. This just doesn't have to be just for me. This is, people are interested in what I'm seeing. So nothing to do with me personally, rather the garments that I had access to at the time working at the vintage warehouse. Over time, I started to notice brands. By default, my posts ended up being a lot of denim. I've always really liked things that wear, like we all do, stuff that looks better with age. It's always been a thing for me. And so by default, a lot of my Instagram posts would become vintage denim garments. And then that led on to me noticing people mentioning Salvage a lot, people mentioning raw denim a lot, which then leads on to me noticing the brands like yourself, or it could be a Rogue Territory, or it could be a Tellison. And slowly but surely, I started to buy into that world. Not leaving the vintage world behind. I still absolutely love it, and we do stock old workwear garments in store, and we love selling them. But as I got more into the raw denim side and the new denim garments, that's not very common in the UK. So then the profile started to build a lot more because there weren't very many people doing it. And as the momentum got going, I started to get more followers, and that's when I decided to turn it into a blog. And a really funny story, my wife was watching a program that we have here in the UK called Gogglebox, which is basically, it's people watching the telly, and then somebody films them watching the telly, and then that's on the telly.
Oh, it's Inception.
Yeah, it is Inception. And all of a sudden it dawned on me that I wanted to write this blog, but I didn't want it to be about me. So I decided to blog denim bloggers.
Interesting.
So I would then speak to them about their blogging. And then that's when it started to blow up and opportunities started to come my way, till eventually I either stopped doing Clobber Calm and was just, you know, a vintage salesman, or I took the plunge and here I am.
You are. That's awesome.
Yeah.
It's really a great journey, and you know, I always enjoy hearing how people kind of came into this industry, and it's like was it last week? Yeah, it was 2 weeks ago. I was talking to Julie from Maple Street Denim, and very, very similar story. You know, she started, you know, in the vintage rag trade, as it were, and then you know, this idea of like raw denim, salvage denim, kind of entered, you know, the sphere as like a new vintage jean, like because you can't get a new, well, you can if you want to pay a lot of money, but you can't get a new vintage jean. So this is a way to get a new vintage jean without, you know, destroying your bank.
And it's funny because they let's face it, we take pride in wearing them in ourselves. So I remember when I got my first pair of raw jeans, and I was speaking to the boss of the company, and he were like, so you're not wearing your vintage jeans anymore. He's like, you know, you've got these raws on. He's like, you know, why? What's happened? And I said, yeah, but I get to wear them in. They're going to fade out. They're going to you know, like this is all. And he just looked at me and he walked over to a pile of about 1,000 pair of Levi's and went, so you want them to look like this? And I'm like, well, yeah, but the fun's doing it yourself.
Right. I want them to be mine. I don't want to wear somebody else's jeans.
And that was it.
Right. I mean, sometimes we do. You know, I do personally also enjoy vintage jeans. And actually, right before this call, I was like, we're opening our store in New York, well, probably next week, and we have in our showroom we had something called the Wall of Fade, and it was just this wall of faded jeans. And we're doing the same thing in New York, so I actually had to pack up the wall here. So I was just packing up, like, you know, 10 years of worn-in jeans from, you know, that we've collected from all of our customers, and I was just shipping that. And I'm just looking at all these great, beautiful fades, and you know, people sometimes ask me, like, you should sell those. I'm like,
they're priceless.
Right. I suppose there's some market for it, but like, I kind of want you to do it yourself, you know? So,
yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah. No, I agree. I don't think you can really put a price on. It's like, what are they actually worth? They're worth more. They're not. Well, they're priceless. There'd be no point. They look better on a wall than what they would anywhere else when they get to that stage.
Right. So, like, speaking of vintage, I find that, maybe tell me if I'm wrong, that the raw denim scene in general in Europe, in the UK, tends to really gravitate around heritage and vintage styling. Now, why do you think that is, if it's true, or maybe give me your opinion of like the raw denim scene in general?
Well, I think what it is, it's basically a step-by-step process as what's happened, because vintage clothing is really popular in the UK. So a lot of vintage denim, you know, sort of 15, 20 years ago, was very heritagey, you know, and that's what you bought in vintage shops, and that's what people wore. The raw denim scene, practically non-existent. Then when a few shops, not many, maybe only a couple that have actually survived and are still there today, became specialized denim stores, a lot of the product that was bought in is almost made to replicate the vintage version that was in the shops.
Right.
But it's a new version, which is what we were just saying. And that's still very much the case, which is why I think we do okay, because as much as I love to look at it, and as much as I appreciate it, I'm not really a heritage guy.
Right.
I want a fade out denim that looks slick and looks nice and looks smart and yeah, so you can go to a pub on a Saturday night and not look like you're in fancy dress, basically. You know, like it's especially up here in North, we're all mining towns, so everybody's spit and sawdust, as they say. You know what I mean? There's no posh people around here, so you don't want to go out looking dressed up. You want to go out looking smart, looking nice, and so I do think it was very heritage, but I think there's a few people like myself that are really pushing the scene that don't particularly follow the heritage trend. So I do think it is slowly changing. It is slowly changing.
That's interesting. Like, you know, I like yourself. I mean, I appreciate, you know, the look and the vibe, but sometimes, and you know, don't get me wrong, sometimes it's fun to wear like that kind of stuff, and I do. But sometimes I see. Now this isn't you know, a comment about the entire community, but sometimes you'll see that guy who looks like he's in like, you know, raw denim cosplay or something. He's just like, it's kind of funny, and I'm like, you know, mind you, like when I see a lot of raw denim people, I'm, you know, maybe I'm at a trade show, so I'm, and that's kind of, I also find trade shows to be part cosplay because like people pull out the craziest outfits. And, you know, obviously they want to get snapped or something. And I always find it amusing. I'm like, I don't think you wear that on a normal day. You know, because, you know, so some of the shows, we do a lot of, like, very fashion shows that we see a lot of different types of brands around us. And, sometimes the outfits are really fun. And I'm not just talking about denim people either. Like, you know. I've seen guys wearing, like, Thai kickboxing shorts matched with like dress shoes and a button-up blazer, and I'm like, where are you going? It's really odd. Are you going to the office and then directly to the like kickboxing gym?
Look at me.
Right. Yeah.
That's what it is. Yeah.
Very funny.
Very much. Well, we, you know, it's it is like that, and I appreciate, you know, the vintage side of it and people that like to get dressed up, but I do think it is changing. I think it's becoming more acceptable. I don't think the whole raw denim thing doesn't make sense to a lot of people in the UK yet. We're educating them, you know, every day. Right.
I think in general, what I like about the raw denim scene is that it isn't just like a heritage scene. You know, you have definitely like high fashion people wearing like dark, clean jeans. You've got streetwear guys. So I think if you're positioned, like if your brand isn't positioned as like strictly, you know, we're all only about, you know, heritage vintage, then you know, you kind of walk a lot of different lines, and you know, at the end of the day, they're just jeans. You wear them however the heck you want to wear them. So
exactly. It's funny because there's so much stuff on the internet that people come into the shop and they're almost confused about raw denim because they've read that much, and you have to sort of like stand back and go, it is just a pair of jeans though.
Right.
It's a nicer pair of jeans, and it will last longer, and it will look better, but it is just a fucking pair of jeans.
Some people take the rules and I put that in quotes, way too seriously, and well, they're gonna stretch out 1.25 inches, and I'm like, maybe. Not really. Like, you don't know. Like, don't, like, people play that weird game of sizing. Like, I'm going to wear them just small enough that they're going to stretch out exactly. I'm like, it's not science, man.
It depends how many times you sit down and stand up for a start.
Right.
If, you know, on how much stuff stretches. But
how much you wash them or you don't wash them. Anyways, it is just a pair of jeans.
It is.
A fancy pair of jeans. But
and a nice pair, a well-made pair, and they do look better when you've wore them in. And I think that's, I notice, especially with the customers in Clobber Calm, that the wearing in process is the most important process to them. And I actually think it's, you know, we are getting too off the beaten track. I actually think it's like a psychological thing. You know, like I feel like your clothing's your closest habitat. Right. There's nothing closer to your soul and your mind than the clothes that you're wearing. And I think that when it comes to raw denim and well-made products that last long and can take a beating, it's almost like a protection. It's like armor.
Yeah.
You know, absolutely. And as they're wearing in and as they're fading, it's like it's like therapeutic. It's like you're shredding your bad day. As that ink bleeds, you know,
or like rather you're like, I feel like it's like your persona is kind of coming through, like my life is coming through in the fades.
Exactly, right. That's it, and it's you know, I mean, I can only speak from my point of view, but I've been into that sort of thing for so long. So when I was 9 years old, for example, I used to buy football trainers like you do with studs, and like I used to take pride in wearing the grips out. So every day I'd go home and turn my trainer over and see how much I'd worn my grips out, and if I could get through to my socks, it was like ultimate
Oh
achievement.
wow. Yeah, not an experience I shared. Was that a common thing over there?
No, I think I'm
No,
just a bit
that
weird.
was just you. All right. Well, speaking of like your person, like your care, I mean, of your shoes, like how do you care, or like how do you recommend people care for their jeans?
The first thing I say, referring back to what we just said 5 minutes ago, is I tell them not to worry about it too much. So they'll always say, "Oh, well, you can't wash them." I read this thing and it said 6 months, but I saw this guy and he went 18 months. And I just say, look, there's a few different ways you can wash them. You can soak them in a bath in lukewarm water if you want for half an hour. I don't overcomplicate it. Put a bit of detergent in if you want and let them hang dry. Or I will say to them, and I do this with my jeans a lot of the time, is I'll take the spin off my washing machine. I'll put it on a 20 degree and just let them go back and forth for half an hour, and then again I just let them hang dry. I don't. I did try a sea wash once in Ibiza over here in Europe, and that was just completely embarrassing. Everybody watched me walk in, and then they continued to watch me to watch me come back out, and so I was just sort of in there thinking, I wish I'd not bothered with this. So I just soak them if you can be bothered. Otherwise, chuck them in the washing machine on a 20. And, I like to do mine every couple of months just to keep it fresh and prevent sort of like brittle fibres and, all salt and crap ruining your denim, really. I think it's nice to freshen them every couple of months.
Right. I mean, and they do feel, I mean, after, you've worn them for a while and you've washed them, you touch them, you're like, you do definitely notice that texture change right away.
Yeah.
They feel clean.
Yeah. So it's it's fun.
It's funny you mentioned the ocean wash, because I also did the same thing, and I think I was in Huntington Beach in California, and I had my jeans on. I walked right into the ocean there, and I was just I actually I'm sure people were watching me, but I really didn't care. I was scrubbing sand into my jeans, and then I took my jeans off and I laid them out to like dry out in the sun.
They get a lot of sand in them, don't they? You're knocking sand out for days.
Sand was coming out, and oddly enough, like little bits of like seaweed and stuff were still in there, and so later on that evening, I remember going back to the hotel and taking a shower with the jeans on in order to like scrub out all the crap that was in there. But that's one thing to worry about the sea wash.
Yeah.
You do get a lot of crap built in.
Yeah. Just a random crab.
Yeah. Did you notice if your jeans looked any different after a sea wash?
I don't think they did, no. Not on mine. I did the jean that I sea washed, I think were like 30% hemp. So I don't know if that has anything to do with it. I'm not as good on my fabrics. I'm not an expert on them as such. But they were like 30 or 40% hemp. They maybe went a lot softer, but they didn't change in colour. But so much. Ooh, beer o'clock here in the supply co. It's 5 o'clock. Yeah. So it. I found that they went a lot softer, like butter. They are one of the most comfiest jeans I've got actually now.
For me, I did notice, because I think I was grinding a lot of sand into the denim, so I think I was like wearing away some of the indigo. I did feel like they lightened up quite a bit. I mean, they would if you grind something into the fabric. Yeah.
Was it a double indigo jean as well, or
it was the dirty fade Salvage.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
So it was an indigo with a beige core yarn with a white weft. So anyways,
I bet that were interesting.
Yeah, we documented it, so I know there's a blog post somewhere. But I think like a lot of myths, or like put your jeans in the freezer. Like there might be some or no validity to them, but I think we all go through some of these things as we get into this hobby.
Yeah, of course. Of course.
They're just kind of fun to try.
Yeah, they are. They are fun to try. I have tried that just to get rid of the smell once. I'm not sure if it worked, if I'm honest, but
the freezer one is one I've never tried, and I think I'm beyond the point of like experimenting with these types of things. Nowadays, it's like throw my jeans in the washer, hot, throw bleach in there too. I don't care. Like, let's see what happens. I'm just rolling the dice now.
Let's just have fun with it.
Right.
I suppose, though, people like me and you may take for granted because we've got access to so many jeans. So, but I suppose somebody that's buying into it for the first time, who's spending 150, 200 pounds, 250 pounds on the first pair, that's probably a lot. They think about this a lot more than what we might do because we kind of take for granted how much denim. Yeah.
I mean, if you're buying a pair of jeans for the first time that might cost 2 or 3 or 4 times more than you've ever spent, I understand your hesitations with this stuff, and you want to make sure you're doing it right. Yeah. But you know what? That's why we're here. I think that's why we're doing this podcast.
Exactly.
And the beauty is, I mean, not just our store, not just your store, any proper denim shop, you give them a call and they're going to give you good advice. So if you're not sure, give them a call, send them an email. We're going to help you out.
Yeah, I agree. It's, I think here in the UK, because it's so rare what we do, but there's obviously an interest in it. Otherwise, my Instagram wouldn't be 70,000 deep, if you know what I mean. So there's obviously interest in it. But I find that a lot of people are quite intimidated by all the information that's online and almost like too scared to bring it up in case they look silly or they look stupid, and I have to work really hard to make people. I've even do the hashtag no egos on purpose, just so people, because my phone number's there to be rung any day, all day. I could talk all day about it, but I think some people are very, it's a different way of shopping. It's a different approach to retail.
Well, I think like in a lot of men's hobbies, maybe it's women's hobbies too, but I don't follow a lot of women's hobbies, so I don't know. But there's sometimes like this gatekeeping mentality, and I feel like it certainly exists in our world, but there's a lot of nice people, who are there to, I guess break through that, So
it's for such a manly concept, strong clothes, denim. It's a very manly concept. It is the least egotistical. Right. Like it's everybody wants to be friends. Everybody's nice. I find, especially over here, it's really interesting because I get a lot of people traveling to the store, and they might travel for an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, and they come and they might be spending the night in Sheffield. So you end up going out for a beer with them because it's the nice thing to do. They've travelled to see you. They've spent a good amount of money in your shop, so I'll take you for a beer. You can't do that 4 times a week, every week. So I set up just a WhatsApp group for the people in the UK that were coming to the shop, and said, look, we'll put an event on, a Denim Hangs. We obviously pinched the name from the LA guys. We'll put a Denim Hangs on, and we'll all get together at the same time. And that group, that was 16 people deep when I started it, and we've just put like number 78 into it, I think. That's in awesome. 6 weeks, and that's just people from UK, and now they're all talking and meeting each other, and they're all asking each other questions, and you can follow it's too many notifications for me. I have to turn them off and just check on it as and when I can, but it's amazing to see them all. They're all making friends,
That's really fantastic. Community building is, I think, the heart of the raw denim, world. And, I think I made a comment the other day on Reddit, something about like, raw denim is a niche of a niche hobby. You could be into denim, but like we're into raw denim, and like there's so few of us out there, and it's like, we got to stick together, and like, cause you're not going to meet the average person on the street or even in your social circle. Maybe it depends on your social circle, but like, who can you talk to about like your fades? You know, and like why your jeans are so cool, or like why you think your jeans are so cool. People are like, they don't think that deeply about their clothes.
No,
So
no. Again, it's back to that psychological, like it's inbred in us for some reason. Something's happened, and this is how we express ourselves. But for the people that don't need that in their life, yeah, you just sell expensive jeans.
Right.
That's it. That's it.
Well,
which is interesting.
Speaking of expensive jeans, the EU has imposed duties on American-made jeans. Like,
Yes.
how has that affected you guys, or maybe the scene in general out there?
It's killing it off. Unfortunately, it's at the minute the import charges are plus 40% on whatever the invoice is. So let's keep it really simple. A breakdown. Say if you're buying something for £100 and you're selling it for 200, for example.
Right.
You get the £100 is what you pay the manufacturer. It comes into the country and 40% is added onto that. So you actually pay 140. And then in the UK, they take 20% VAT when you've sold it. So that makes it 160. And then that doesn't include the carriage or the sign up to the mailing list and get you 10%, or spend over £200 and get free postage. So eventually, when you actually break it down, it's almost like American stock can only really be used as loss leaders at the minute in the UK, which is really difficult.
That's very rough. And that I remember when that hit, because it was very all of a sudden. And I think we were in Paris at the shows there when it happened, and we certainly heard from our retail partners, that was something they were very concerned about. And being from Canada, that doesn't affect us, but a lot of people don't realize. I think Canada is to America is like Australia to New Zealand. Some people don't realize that they're separate. So,
completely.
So people are like, oh man, that's gonna hurt your business, and we're like, no, we're Canada, it's not the same country.
Yeah, that's really good, because you guys can ship, can't you, with no charges at the moment into the EU.
So Canada and EU have a free trade agreement. So any Canadian-made goods shipped to the Eurozone duty-free, that doesn't exclude VAT. You can't escape VAT.
That's a British thing, yeah.
It's a whole Europe thing. It's sales tax, right? So if you buy something, the government wants their share. Fine. Yeah. Duty is the made-up part, where it's like, we're just gonna. I'm sure there's some sort of mathematical whatever relations behind it, but but I felt that the American, like, they impose sanctions on like really odd things, like American jeans, and it's like, well, yeah, there's a lot of American brands, but not all of the American brands make their jeans in America. So does this sanction actually hurt? To me, it's kind of like it's this. Maybe 1% of jeans are made in America, like of American brands, maybe even less. Like it was like this thing that they put up just to like be like, okay, well, we're gonna fight back against whatever our trade disagreements are, but it only really hurt like small producers.
Yeah, exactly. It's a shame, really. It is a shame. I've still in the back of my head. I mean, I don't know much about politics. It's something that I avoid, but I still think that the UK and America might end up trading for free on things like that. It might take a couple of years, but I wouldn't be surprised if that's the way it goes. But like I said, I'm no expert, so. Right.
Yeah, I mean, there's the whole Brexit thing, and so there's going to be a lot of trade agreements and that are going to have to evolve in the situation.
And they ain't got a clue what nobody knows what's happening with Brexit. I don't actually think the people in charge of the country yet know what's happening with Brexit. It's just the whole vote thing. I'd be surprised if 50% of the people voted knew what they were actually voting. Right.
Well, oddly enough, everything that happens like politically is like almost always when I'm on a trip to Europe at some point. And I remember we were getting on a plane here in Montreal, going to Paris, and as we were getting on the plane, that's when like the Brexit vote was happening, and like I remember looking at my phone, like when we land, we're gonna know what happens. Yeah. And I'm like, okay, well we land, and I'm like, I get I turn on my phone, the notifications like, well they voted yes, and I'm like, whoa, like. I wonder what's going to happen now. When we got to the trade show to set up, all of the English brands, everybody was just like, what are we going to do? Like, because there were some currency things that happened also, like, immediately. And they're like, we all have our price lists, and none of these price lists are valid now. And everybody's, like, rushing to change their prices. And anyways.
It's true. It's absolutely true, and it's still like that now. It's still like that now. It's difficult.
Very interesting time. I mean, and the thing is, like, a lot of consumers don't understand how much, like, these trade agreements affect, like, real life things. Like we in Canada with America and Mexico, we have NAFTA, but that was renegotiated. I think it's called the USA Mexico Canada agreement now. And, a lot of it was preserved, and there were some things that were changed. And I'm like, well, if, luckily it didn't, even with the changes, it didn't affect us. So, we're still able to ship to America duty-free. But had that not, been preserved, that certainly would have affected us big time.
Yeah. It's a big deal. It's, let's see what happens.
Right. Let's keep our fingers crossed. And, hopefully everything will work out in the end.
I always think if you just keep your head down and work hard, you'll be all right. That's it.
I think so too.
You can't control anything else.
Right. It's best not to worry about stuff you have absolutely no control over.
Yeah, exactly.
All right.
So,
well, I was going to ask, just segueing back into, like, strict raw denim talk.
Of course.
Like, you came from, like, the vintage industry.
Yes.
And then that took you to, raw denim, Clobber Calm, and everything you have going on for you right now. So you've seen presumably thousands of jeans over your career. What types of details, like, really get you going? What are the kinds of things that you love to see in a pair of jeans?
When I was in the back when I was in the vintage world, still, I was just interested in jeans that looked absolutely battered, just worn to death. Like, that's all it were. That's all I wanted to see. That's all I was bothered about. So anything that had been worn or repaired, but not properly repaired. You knew that somebody had repaired it themselves and then carried on wearing it and then repaired it themselves. It were all about that then. Now, obviously, because I know a little bit more about the construction and how it's done. I'm a bit of a Salvage snob, so I think, like, every jean should be Salvage now. I know that's not right. That's just like, I don't think anything looks better than that, and it's such a simple little touch.
Sure.
But these days now I find myself checking for felled seams and all that kind of thing. It's just when you turn them inside out and you can't see any overlocking, that's a really nice thing to see. Right. I think. So I suppose I'm getting a little bit geeky as I get a little bit older and a bit more into it. But I don't think a lot of them qualities are essential either to a good jean. It's just that's just me being around it all the time, seeing everything all the time. And starting to appreciate the tiniest of details, maybe a little bit more than what you normally would.
Right. Like, I think, there are details that we really, really appreciate. And then I think at some point, like, the deeper understanding of a pair of jeans, you get to the point, well, that detail's interesting because maybe I don't see it a lot, but it's not particularly essential. Right?
No, it's definitely not.
There are, dozens and maybe even hundreds of different ways to construct a jean, and more or less, they're all going to hold pretty much the same.
The same,
right?
Yeah, it's true.
So I always find it odd that some people are very, very particular over certain details, and other details they don't consider at all. And I'm being in manufacturing also,
Yeah.
it's like we try to include like a lot of the juicy bits, and there's some things that aren't as essential as others. One thing, for example, is like hidden rivets, and like a lot of people are like, I want hidden rivets, I need hidden rivets, and they're great for me, they're great as a nerdy detail. It's kind of fun to look and see then, and I have something, and only I know about it, because like, when is anybody else gonna look at the inside of my jeans?
Exactly.
But like the actual,
it's non-essential.
Super non-essential, and actually the cost to put it on is so high that I think if people realize that, how much is it more? How much more expensive is this? Almost, in every other way, the same jean gonna be.
Yeah.
And it actually adds a lot of cost. And we make stuff in Japan for our Made in Japan line, and for that line we go 100% all out. No detail goes missing. Everything we could possibly put into a jean, we put. And it's funny because when we were looking for the right manufacturer, and sometimes they're giving us their costing for production, and they're like, well, if you take this out and you take this out, we could actually save you like half. And we're talking like 2 really tiny details. And I'm like, wow, like these are really, really expensive details. And, for the absolute connoisseur, it's very, very important to have, and that's why they're there. But
there's not that many connoisseurs, though. That's the thing.
Right.
90% of the population just want a good, solid, quality jean. So I understand what you're saying.
Right. If it's 90% there, like personally, I'm happy. If it's 100% there, I'm happy. If it's at a really good price, because at some point, like I also don't want to go broke over, minuscule details, I guess. Especially if they're mostly all there.
Exactly. And like we said before, we have all these little details, but if we're actually honest, and we haven't actually mentioned it yet in this conversation, is the most important thing that people appreciate probably most about the jeans, although they might not mention it, is the fabric.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? If you've got a killer fabric, the rest of the stuff, the fabric's important. That's what's going to wear. That's what's going to fade. That's what's going to rub on your skin every day. That's what's going to rip or not rip. The fabric.
Like, again, most construction out there, it's going to hold that jean together. It's not going to fall apart. And to be fair, especially if people are using like the proper machines to construct a pair of jeans, a lot of those operations, the machine is designed for a specific task. So they make that jean properly. So, people can talk about, this construction or that construction, either way, a felt seam versus not a felt seam. They're both going to hold up, right?
Yeah, exactly. I agree.
Is it going to be as clean? Maybe not, but it's also the inside of the jean, and anyway, we can get into debates about that.
Yeah.
But the fabric is absolutely essential. The most important part of the jean, because that's, like you said, that's what's going to wear. That's what's going to reflect your wear and tear and the way that it shows off. So
that is the jean, isn't it? That is the jean, essentially. So, I suppose fabric's most important.
I think so, too.
After all that, we went around the houses.
I was going to say, like, for you, considering all the details and all the fabrics, that if you could pick and put everything together, like, what would your dream jean look like?
It's really funny because at the minute I am actually wearing a jean called the Callum, which is actually our own jean that we sell in store. So this fit was made for me. So I suppose I'm cheating a bit there because I've actually got the fit on. This is 16.5 ounce indigo neon mempool denim. I'm really happy with them, but I'm not I'm not an expert on fabrics in terms of the details and all that sort of thing. I just know that at the minute I'd really like some really good slubby fabric. And my staff going about the king of slub all the time. Amanda, that's just sat here now, is a fan, aren't you, Amanda?
Yes, I am.
I'm glad.
So,
You know, well, I think slub right now is kind of like the biggest trend in
yeah,
raw denim.
It's different. It's so different. It's the guys on the UK WhatsApp group, the Denimangs group, they talk about slub all the time.
Right on.
That's what they had, the brand slubby. You know, I don't know how many of them's been and bought that 16-ounce jean, but I've seen enough pictures of them to know that there's a few. You know, like
I want to see them. I want to see.
Yeah, it's. I'll have to forward some on to you.
Right.
Yeah. So I think like, and I don't actually own a pair. Ugh, I'm telling a lie. Actually, there's a Japanese brand called Tanuki.
Yep.
I don't know if you know them or not. I have actually got a pair of their 18-ounce slubby, high-rise tapered jeans, and I do really, really, really love them. So I suppose I have got a pair. It'd just be nice to put that fabric on my fit.
Right.
and then that's my perfect pair.
There's your next. That's your next design. There you go.
Yeah, something like that.
You know,
so we'll see.
Interesting, like just back to the King of Slub. You know,
yeah.
We just got them in the warehouse, and my warehouse guys, they're picking them, they're packing them, you know, they're shipping them out to customers, and you know, they're not denim people, you know, like, you know, they're warehouse guys, you know, they're here to work, you know, they roll up their sleeves, they get their hands dirty, and one of them came up to me and he with the jean and he's like, "This is the most beautiful jean you guys have made," and I'm like, "Yeah." Yeah. It is, and like it is unbelievable. And if you guys haven't seen on our Instagram, I posted a couple of faded examples.
Oh, really?
Right. So what we did was we have with our partner in Korea. He actually sent them out to a wash house in Japan, and you know, this is a place that they actually pre-distress jeans for you know,
for a living.
Yeah, that's what they do. So. Yeah. They took a bunch of our jeans and they aged them for us, basically. So this is what they would look like if they've been worn for 10 years or 5 years or this and that. So a lot of people, you know, when we release a new collection, they ask me, like, what are these going to fade like? And I mean, the unfortunate truth for most of it is like, I don't know. I have an idea.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
Because I've dealt with so many fabrics in my life, like I have an idea what they're going to look like, but I don't know exactly what they're going to look like. So I think doing this, you know, it gives people like some inspiration right from the beginning. Like, here's what these jeans could look like, and if you see these photos, you're gonna be very impressed, I'm sure. Yeah,
that's really good. Amanda will check them out. The Super Slug fades. Bazzy's posted some on Instagram recently. You'll have to get them up for me. She's gonna have a look now, so she'll come back to us in a minute.
You know, there are also, I find, like, you know, Amanda, and you know, there's Amy Leverton, and there's what's her name, Emily over at Nigel Caburn. But
yes, yeah.
I'm, you know, in the last couple of years, more and more women are getting into the whole raw denim experience.
Yeah.
How do you find that, like, you know, within your own shop?
I find that they look amazing, by the way. I just had a quick look. We do sell to women, a small percentage. It's definitely mainly men. I find that women come in and buy because they are looking for a fit and quality. I don't think it's necessarily about the fading. I don't think it's about having the selvage rolled up at the side of the legs. They come to here because they think that's a denim shop. I can find a jean that will fit around my ass and then go nice and tight back on my stomach. And yeah, so I don't think it would. The fact that it's raw denim, I don't actually think bothers them. I think what they want is a jean that fits really well, and us being a denim specialist, they think, right, that's where to go because I'm fed up of being on High Street and it not working.
Right.
So I think I could probably have pre-washed denims and everything like that in here. If that fits right, the woman will buy it, because it's such a struggle for a woman. Because a bloke, I mean, I've seen it in store. A man, you can get 6 blokes in all a size 32 waist, all buy the same jean, and it fits them all completely different. One wears it slouched down his ass, one wears it up round his chest, one wears it just where it needs to be, one likes it because he can roll it up to his knees, you know. And it's but women they like a silhouette.
Right.
And they like to look same all the time. That's what they're comfortable with. Do you know? That's how they like their bodies looking. So
Yeah.
I find that they come in more for the perfect fit and the more options than the fact that it's raw, for example. And they are willing to spend a bit more for that if they can find the right jeans. So
yeah, I mean, I guess as men we're lucky that a pair of jeans, it could look sloppy, it could look tight, it could look perfect. And it doesn't matter, and that's kind of the. But for a woman, I suppose it does make much more of a difference. Oddly enough, I also used to sell suits back in the day, and that's where it. Well, while I do feel like women's suits also need to fit them as well, men's suits, like a proper fitting men's suit, that's a real challenge for a lot of men, and. Anyways, there's the whole story behind how to fit properly in a suit there as well. But the beauty is we can wear jeans any way we want and get away with it. And I think we're luckier in that respect.
Yeah, because we don't have to look as nice all the time. we can look a bit scruffy and still get away with it, basically. It don't work like that for women quite as easily.
No.
Yeah, so.
Well...
we need to leave that before we get in trouble.
Well, I don't think we're gonna get in trouble. I think it's just a reality of we're not saying it's good or we benefit and they don't, and that's a shame, and we recognize that. So we're not making any. I don't even know. Anyway, I think we're good. well, with that said, are there any things about raw denim that you don't like?
The thing I don't like about raw denim is I don't like seeing it on high street for 60 quid. I don't like that. I think it undermines all the efforts and hard work of people like yourself that are constantly working on trying to create something that's special that people can enjoy and accept into their lives and take on a journey. And that takes effort, and it takes time, and it takes craftsmanship, and it takes patience, and it takes a fucking lot of hard work, as you will know. So then to walk into an high street shop and see a pair for 55 quid, whether it's real Salvage or not, I don't know. Do you know? But yeah, I don't like that about raw denim. I don't understand how the two things marry up, if you know what I mean. And so that frustrates me. But I don't know if I'm just being very protective there, Buddy, to be honest.
I think kind of the spirit of raw denim, maybe I'm just talking from what my view of the community is that it's part of why we wear it is because it's this slow made, traditional made kind of made in America, made in Canada, made in Japan, made not made in questionable ways, right?
Yeah, it's authentic,
right? And I've seen these shops, and they'll have fake Salvage on their jeans, and they'll have like this little ribbon that looks like Salvage, and they'll sew it into the the 3 inches of the cuff so that when you roll it up, it looks like Salvage.
Yeah,
and I'm like, it's really weird. I find why would you even do that?
Yeah.
And the other thing that always confuses me is I don't have TV, but sometimes I'm in a hotel or whatever, I'm watching TV, and I see a commercial for jeans, all the jeans this weekend, $14.99 and $19.99, and I'm like, how do you get a finished garment, delivered with shipping, with duty, with everything, in the store with profit attached at $15 or $20?
Something's not right. So that line is not. It's not a straight one. From start to finish, something's not fitting together.
If you presented somebody with a meal and you said this meal is $1, right? And I'm sure you can get a meal for $1. Let's not,
of course.
Here's a steak, for example. What's supposed to be a good steak. This one's $1, and this one is, I guess whatever the market rate is supposed to be. Like,
Yeah.
as a consumer, I would be questioning why that piece of meat is so cheap,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, for sure.
But we
For
don't
sure.
seem to do that on the same level when it comes to, the garments that we buy and wear.
Yeah, I think a lot of it as well. I was talking to somebody about this the other day, and I think a reason why people don't think about it in that sense is because the places where you can get jeans for $14.95 or whatever they are, it's what we create, what we make is a style. It comes from an old school grounding. Whether it's your jeans, whether it's your Red Wing boots, it's a style. Do you know the first jean were made for miners?
Right.
The first proper boot, like what we see, were made for workers, and so it's style, not fashion. But the problem is, it's back to the 80-20. There's only 20 people in the 20% of the world that are stylish, that are into style, something that never dies. So then what happens is the other 80%, they're into fashion. So they have to constantly reimburse their wardrobe 4 times a year because they want to be fashionable.
Right.
And what happens is you can't afford to spend 60, 70, 80, 90, 100 pounds on your garments when you have to replace them 4 times a year. And I think that's so it's sort of imploded. So now, there's other people suffering just so you can do that to your wardrobe. When the truth is, if you've got style, you don't need fashion.
Right.
You look cooler than anybody else in
Yeah.
the street. It's just getting your head around that mentality.
Your classically styled, well-made leather jacket is going to be good today. It's going to be good in 40 years from now,
Exactly.
And I think that's also why, you look at a pair of vintage jeans, right? I'm maybe not like 1800s wear, one pocket with no belt loops and that type of stuff. But like, when we got the mod, like at least, the 5-pocket style, you could take any 5-pocket jean from any time in history and wear them today, and they still look modern,
Exactly.
because that style is timeless.
Yeah, it's created its own entity, it's its own life, and you can't interfere with that. But yeah, unfortunately, not everybody thinks the same, and that's why we're here educating again.
You got it. Right. Let's just,
So
the more transparent, the more open we can be about this, and of course, I don't expect everybody to convert over, but some people will, and we'll continue to spread good vibes and be positive about the situation.
Of course,
right?
Of course.
So, I have I always have my list of questions, but
of course.
My last question on my list is like, what do your friends think of raw denim? Are you in a circle of friends who are much like you?
It's really funny that you ask that question, because like everybody, I've got me friends that I've known. I'm 35, so I've got my friends that I grew up with from being 5 years old. And they're me friends that I don't even have to speak to for 6 months, and then when I see them, it's brilliant. And then I've got friends that I met at college and friends that I met at work and stuff like that. So I'm going to say that my friends definitely do not understand. No, to be fair, one of them has finally bought a pair of Red Wings, and I've got one friend that's really buying into what we're doing, and he really appreciates all the hard work. He's got no children, so he's got a bit of expendable income now. He's getting older, and I have kitted him out with a good few pair of jeans and a good few jackets. But all the other friends just like to take the mickey out of him for looking like me. So it's not took very seriously in my I've met amazing people through denim, and I've got some brilliant friends that I love to spend time with. But if we're going to narrow it down to the people I've known for the longest in my life, we rarely even mention denim. Okay. It's not a thing. We still, it's still mum jokes and
sure.
So
I like to ask this question because, I like I mentioned before, we're our hobby is a niche of a niche. So like, there's not a lot of us out there. So if you're worried that like you're the only weirdo in your group of friends that likes raw jeans, like don't worry about it. We are all that weirdo as well, and that's why we these groups to get together and talk about our pants.
That's what we do. Yeah, that's funny. So yeah, that's I'd say that's what my friends think to it. But I've also got some amazing friends that I have met, in the more recent years that are a little bit, obviously through doing vintage clothing, a lot of people I meet are into and interested in clothing. So there's a lot of people I've known 10, 12 years who, really appreciate what we're doing and what people like you do. And they're not necessarily all wear it, but they get it.
Right.
They understand it, so, and that's really nice as well.
Okay. Well, I guess that's it for this episode. But,
sure.
I want to tell everybody that I will be on your podcast.
For sure.
Can
we make it?
I think next week. I am going to be in New York for much of next week. We're going to be opening up our shop, and I should be home by Friday. So we'll do this again on Friday, and I'm going to join you, and you'll get a chance to interview me, and we'll talk about denim some more. And just one more time for our listeners out there, let everybody know where they can find you. Where can they find your podcast?
Well, you can find our podcast. It's on SoundCloud. It's on iTunes. You just have to search Clobber Calm or Clobbercast, as we've called it. Okay. See what we did there.
Right.
But it is also streamed via his website. So if you just went to www.clobbercam.com, there is also a stream. If you scroll down a little bit and get past the whole retail parts, there is actually a stream of it just there. It'll be really interesting when we get you on, because Glenn, who is my co-host, he's a very lovely, very sociable guy, but he'd never been into raw denim. So he came into my shop. I've known him for 10 years. And he said, I've seen these Red Wing boots. I want to try some. And he bought a pair of Red Wings. And he sort of kept coming back. And he sort of bought into what we were doing, but didn't really know what he wanted from it, if you know what I mean. And we broke him in. His first ever raws was your deep indigo stretch Salvage. The dark 12 ounce.
Right, great choice.
That has been one of the best-selling jeans for us because of people. It's like a brilliant. It's just got that little bit. It's just a bit easier for them to get their head round. And if you look at Glenn's profile, he has faded them out big time. He has put some wear into his. Like, they look amazing. So he's a bit of a fanboy. So it'll be really good when you're on podcast, because he'll be drilling you a little bit on all these things. So yeah, it should be really fun next week, mate. Really fun.
Super, fantastic. Well, I look forward to it. I'm going to leave all the links to your stuff in the description below here, and of course, like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff.
That's brilliant. Yeah. It's when does this go on YouTube? Can I ask?
This weekend. So,
this weekend. Do you mind if I take this audio and put it out as a podcast before we speak and we fire the questions at you?
No problem. I'm going to send you this audio right after I stop recording, and you can do it. I'm going to put this up on YouTube, because that's where you could pretty much only find me right now. I want to get the SoundCloud and iTunes stuff set up, but I have to figure it all out. And I'll
loop you in with Glenn. When you send me the audio, I'll forward it on to Glenn, but include you, and you can ask him how to do it, and he'll sort it out for you.
Excellent. All right. Well,
perfect.
Thanks so much for everybody tuning in. We will speak to you guys again soon, and have a nice day.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure.
All right.
It's been a pleasure.
Cool.
All right, mate. You take care. Speak to you soon.
Right.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.